My name is Sarah Collins. I married Mark when I was 29. He had a smile that made me feel safe. He was kind, soft, and always said the right words. We lived in a small house in Ohio. We painted the kitchen blue and hung cheap curtains that blew in the wind. Life felt ordinary and warm. Then everything broke. The worst day is the one I can never forget. I was sitting on the couch, eyes burning from too much crying, when I opened the video on my phone. My hands shook so much I could barely tap the screen. The hidden camera I had put under the bed for 2 nights had recorded everything. I had not watched it yet. I told myself I could not face it. But the pile by the feeding pump in the corner had kept growing. Condoms. One every morning. I could not explain how they got there. On the video, the house was dark. The clock showed 2:17 a.m. Then I saw him. Mark rose up from the bed like a shadow slipping out of a blanket. He walked on 2 feet that were not shaking. He pulled the blanket tight around him like a man who wanted to hide the rest of his skin. He moved quietly, but he moved. He was not paralyzed. My stomach dropped. I wanted to scream, but the sound stuck in my throat. The man on the video, my husband, walked to the corner where the feeding pump and the tube sat. He reached down, and his hand went under the metal box. He pulled something out and stuffed it into a gym bag. I leaned closer to the screen. He was holding a small wrapper. He threw it into the bag with quick, practiced hands. Then he zipped it closed and put the bag next to a pair of shoes by the door. A woman came into view. She wore jeans and a jacket. She moved like she was used to doing this, like this was not the first time. She kissed him at the cheek, but the motion on the camera made something else clear. They did not kiss like strangers. They hugged like 2 people who had secrets together. My phone slipped from my hand. It hit the couch, and my heart felt like it did too. I watched their faces. He nodded at her like they had an agreement. She picked up the gym bag, and they left together through the side door. The camera kept rolling, catching the soft click of shoes on the porch and then the empty house settling back into silence. I did not know whether to call the police or to throw up. My life unspooled with every frame. In the day, Mark stayed in bed. He used a wheelchair people thought he needed. He had tubes and a pump, and his hands shook when visitors came. He let doctors check him. He let my mother help with baths and feeds. He told me he could not walk. I believed him because I loved him. We had been married 10 years. I fed him. I slept in the chair beside him some nights. I had kissed his forehead as he slept and whispered, "I love you," and I thought he needed me. I had given him everything. Seeing him on that video was like ripping off a mask while he smiled at me. The calm I had once felt for our home was replaced by a cold, terrible clarity. The woman in the jacket had a face I did not know. Her hands trembled too. Maybe she had a reason. Maybe she loved him. The mind makes up possibilities to soften the blow, but nothing made the scene better. I watched the clip again and again because part of me hoped my eyes were lying. Maybe it was a dream. Maybe the camera was broken. But the date and time were printed on the corner in small white letters. Last night, 2:17 a.m. This morning, 3:11 a.m. 2 nights. 2 different women. Each time Mark rose. Each time the gym bag came out. Each morning, there was a new used wrapper by the feeding pump in the corner. How could he do this? How could he lie to me for so long? How could he let me wash his back, change his sheets, and pretend to need my help when he clearly got up in the night to meet someone? I felt stupid. I felt like a fool who had slept through the siren that told her to run. After the first clip, I could not breathe. My whole body was buzzing with cold. My mind did what my body could not. It planned. I wanted to yell at him, to hit him, to make him say why. I wanted to confront the women who came to our house and ask their names, to tear their jackets and demand, "Who are you to take my life?" But the camera had more. I kept watching. On the 3rd night, I watched until the camera ran out of memory. The house was so quiet I could hear my own teeth clack. The woman who came last looked at the camera for a split second as she crossed the room. She didn't see it under the bed. She didn't know the small black dot was there, or she would have walked around the other way. She stopped, and the light in the hall made her face bright. I could tell she was younger than Mark. Maybe in her 20s. She had a tight ponytail and a small nose ring. She and Mark moved together like they had a chore to finish. He had a phone in his hand, I saw the glow from it, and he read something aloud. He laughed softly at a line and she laughed with him. They exchanged a look like lovers who had learned one another's small jokes. Then he reached under the bed, and I saw him take out a small plastic box. He opened it and took out items wrapped in silver paper. He put one into the woman's hand and she left with it, tucking it into her jacket. Then they closed the door and the heavy click sounded like a trap snapping shut. I stayed on the couch until the sun rose. I watched the light move across the wood floor where we had put a cheap rug last winter. The pump in the corner hummed like it always had. My life looked the same from the window, but inside I knew it was rotten. The sick feeling in my stomach made me dizzy. I wanted to throw up. I wanted to turn the video off and go to bed and wake up to a normal life. That was not possible. The image of him walking across the room, not frail, not slow, not the man I had tended, kept coming back. That afternoon I pretended everything was normal. I cooked a thin soup and served it to him with hands that did not want to touch him. He smiled and thanked me. He said he felt tired and asked me to sit by his bed like always. He touched my hand like a glass cup touching the table. I held a fork with trembling fingers while trying to act like nothing had changed. He was good at acting, I realized. Maybe that was the worst part. He had practiced being weak and I had practiced believing him. I did not sleep that night. I loaded the camera memory onto my laptop and watched the footage again. I paused and rewound and froze frames to study the small details. The woman who came on the second night had a faded necklace with a tiny heart. The shoes she wore were cheap but clean. The gym bag he used matched the one I had seen in the trunk of his car once when he pretended he had gone to the store. I noticed a smell in my memory: cologne, a clean laundry scent. I suddenly remembered seeing a small perfume bottle on the windowsill last month and thinking of nothing. My mind filled the gaps with questions I could not answer. Was he meeting them for sex? Was he meeting them because he was in love? Was he meeting them because he was hiding something else? The camera did not show everything. It only showed what it could see: Mark stepping out of bed, a woman putting a small wrapped thing into a bag, a soft kiss, and then leaving. Nothing else. The next morning, a new wrapper lay by the feeding pump. I picked it up with gloved hands because the house smelled like old coffee and dish soap, and the inside of my chest felt bloody. I slid it into a small envelope and wrote the date. Then I did something I had not done since we married. I packed a small bag. I put in clean clothes and the little notebook Mark always complained about when he could not find it. I left our dog, Milo, a note with my mother. I wanted someone to know I was leaving if I did not return. I wanted to make sure I had a way out. At lunchtime, I went to the kitchen and sat. My hands were empty. My mind was full of a single loud thing: the footage. I opened the file again. That was when I noticed something I had missed in my first frantic viewings. In the corner of the frame, for the briefest second, the woman's hand brushed against the leg of the bed and knocked something onto the floor. A small white box slid under the bed and stopped. Mark reached for it quickly, and then he looked down and frowned. He did not pick it up right away. The camera did not show what it was. My heart raced. I crawled under the bed. It smelled like dust and old bedroom air. My knees were dirty in my jeans. I reached under and felt a small, smooth object. I pulled it out and held it in my hand. It was a small paper packet, taped shut with clear tape. My hand shook so much that the packet fluttered. I opened it. Inside was a single Polaroid. The picture was dark, but I could see two faces: Mark's face and a woman's face pressed close. He was smiling. My breathing stopped. Then, in the corner of the Polaroid, someone had written a message in black ink: "See you tomorrow at 2 o'clock." I dropped the photo. It fluttered down like a dead bird. My chest felt hollow and vast. The house seemed to lean inward. I wanted to go to him, to tear the covers and force the truth out of his mouth, but I also wanted to stay far away. I wanted him to speak so I could hate him. I wanted to call my mother and scream until I could not hear anything but my own voice. I did none of those things. Instead, I sat with the picture in my hands and watched the clock. I waited for the next night. When the clock finally struck 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number: "See you soon." The lights in the house seemed to dim the way they do before a storm. I turned off the lamp and pressed my back to the wall. I listened as the pump in the corner hummed and the house sighed. I pressed play on the camera clip again and watched the shadow of Mark rise from bed like a man getting up from a long, slow lie. Then I heard something else, a soft foot on the porch, then the door closed. My phone recorded a soft exhale from someone in the next room. I felt frozen. I felt every plan I had made melt away. My life had split into two lines, the life I had lived and the life the footage had shown me. One of them could not be mended. The door to Mark's room opened a crack. I do not move yet. I do not run. I do not shout. I only hold my breath and wait because whatever comes through that door will change everything again. The door opened slow. I pressed my back harder into the wall. My whole body felt like a stone. The light from the hall painted a thin line on the floor. Mark stepped out. He wore the same pajamas he always wore. His hair was messy. He moved like a man who needed help sometimes, but not like the man in the videos. Tonight he walked with the quick step of someone who had practiced standing. The woman came in behind him. Her name, I would learn later, was Emily. She smelled like cheap perfume and rain. She smiled at Mark the way people smile at things they want to keep. He smiled back and looked around like he was sure the house was empty. I made no sound. I could not risk it. I did not want them to look over and see me. I wanted to see everything without being seen. They went to the corner where the pump sat. The same corner that had the small wrappers by it every morning. Mark moved the pump a little to the side and pulled a thin blanket over his legs. I watched as Emily sat on the edge of the bed and took off her jacket. Mark talked to her softly. I could not hear the words. The camera was under the bed and the audio was low. But I could see the way his mouth moved. He read something on his phone and then laughed. She laughed too. They leaned close as if sharing a secret. I felt like someone had pushed me off a cliff. For 10 years I had fed him, washed him, bathed him. I had held his head when he coughed. I had read to him by the light and told him stories about the people he used to be. He let me hold him. He let his hand close around mine in the night. I had thought he needed me. How wrong I had been. But the video also showed something else that made my heart pound hard enough to hurt. The way Mark moved was not clumsy or slow. He moved with care, like he had learned how to be quiet in a sleeping house. He rolled his shoulders, stretched his back, and stood like a man without pain. He carried the small gym bag I had seen before. He knelt a moment and then stood. Emily reached down and handed him something small. He put it into the bag. Their hands brushed. He looked at her the way people look at things they want to keep. I stayed like a statue until they left. Then I crawled out from behind the wall and sat on the floor. The house felt cold in the places where light did not touch. I pressed my palms to my knees and tried to feel anything steady. My mind ran fast. I had to know more. I could not stand the idea of waking up each day to another wrapper by the pump, to another lie tucked under our bed. The next afternoon I watched them again. They had come on the same night. That calm and practiced way they moved across the room. I wrote down small details. Emily had a small star tattoo behind her ear. The woman who had come the second night had the necklace with the heart. The shoes matched the ones I had seen by the trunk in Mark's car. Small things that fit together like pieces of a puzzle. Instead of going straight to Mark, I did something else. I went through his phone when he was asleep. He kept it on the night table sometimes. He said he liked to check messages when he could not sleep. He said it made him feel part of the world. I had never been nosy before. I had trusted him. This time I could not. His phone was full of messages with names I did not know. Some were short. 2 o'clock? Still good. Bring the bag. See you. Others were longer and softer. I found a message to Emily that said, "Don't tell them. I'm sorry. I will be gone soon. My health is the charity story." I read that line 3 times. Charity story. The words hit like stones. He had built a life inside our house and told the world it was for his care. People had given money. People had donated. I had helped him answer letters. I had held his hand while people left checks and envelopes and kind notes. I had told everyone the truth I believed. How could he do this? I wanted to confront him then and there. I wanted to throw the phone at his chest and ask why he had lied to me and the world. I wanted to shout until my lungs gave out. But I did not. Instead, I watched more. I watched until the edges of my eyes blurred with tiredness. That night, I decided to follow him. He left the house with Emily the way the camera had shown, quiet, careful. He carried the bag. He walked as if his legs knew to go where they always went. I sat in my car across the street and watched the lights of Mark's taillights bob away. The car they got into was an old sedan. He drove. I watched him drive. My hands shook on the steering wheel. I had never driven so far at night before. My mother had taught me to stay safe. My father had said, never go out like that. I felt foolish for leaving the house, but the need to know beat fear like a drum. They went to a motel on the highway, a cheap place with neon that stuttered like it was dying. The kind of place couples use when they have something to hide. I parked a block away and watched them go in. Mark and Emily walked slow, like they had nowhere to be. They leaned close and spoke in quick sentences. He kissed her on the cheek before they went inside. She held the bag like something precious. I waited for hours in my car. It felt ridiculous and small. The motel's neon blinked red and blue. Other people came and went. I took notes. I wrote the license plate down. I tried to stay calm. I thought about calling a private investigator, but money mattered. We had been scrimping for years for things like medicines and special diapers. I had given him everything. I had thought we were building a life together. Now I felt like a stranger looking at an empty house. When they finally came out, it was nearly morning. Mark did not limp or need help. He walked like a man who had nothing wrong with him. He hugged Emily and put the bag in the trunk. Then he climbed into the driver's seat. I followed them. We drove through parts of the city I knew like the backs of my own hands. We drove past a factory with tall windows and a spray of bright lights. We turned down a narrow street and stopped behind a warehouse. I could see a small light inside like a candle. A man came out. He was tall and plain and wore a jacket with a name on it, Courier. He nodded at Mark and Emily like he had known them for a long time. Emily handed him the bag. He took it and walked away. They met at a small door between two buildings. A light shone on the pavement. Mark unlocked the door and they went in. I could not see what happened inside because the door closed behind them. I waited in my car, feeling like a ghost. My phone buzzed with messages from someone named Anna asking if I wanted to come to book club. I wanted to tell her to mind her own life. I wanted to scream. Instead, I took pictures with my phone through the car window. They stayed inside for a long time. When they came out, they looked like people who had finished a job. Emily hugged Mark and then left fast. Mark walked to his car like nothing had happened. He drove home and parked. I trailed him and watched as he made his way to the front door. He did not use the wheelchair ramp. He climbed the porch steps like a man who had all his strength. Inside the house, he acted tired. He took his medicine and sat back. He rubbed his eyes and called me by a small pet name from the early days of our marriage. I felt sick. I made him dinner and set it on a tray. He ate slowly, like he always had. He said nothing about being out. He told me he had a bad dream and felt shaky. I had so many questions that night. I wanted to open the door to everything. I wanted to take him by the shoulders and ask why he had lied for so long. But fear kept my mouth closed. I had learned that the truth can be sharp like a knife. I had seen it in the way his face changed when he read messages. I had seen the way he hid the bag by his shoes. I had seen the way he laughed softly like someone sharing a private joke. A week passed. Each night the same pattern repeated. Mark left the house. He came back in the morning pretending to be tired. The wrappers kept appearing by the pump. I kept collecting them and putting dates on the envelopes. I made a small pile in my bedside drawer. I kept the Polaroid in a different place so I could look at it when the quiet grew too loud. One afternoon, a letter arrived at the house. It was from a local charity that had once donated to Mark's care. They wanted to know if we would come to the fundraiser. They asked if Mark would be willing to share his story. I could not answer. My throat closed like a fist. I thought of all the people who had written kind notes and given checks. I thought of the woman in line at the grocery store who had prayed for him. I thought of the strangers who had given without asking for anything in return. I had helped him accept those gifts. He had used me to build a lie. That night, I did something I had never done before. I called his doctor. Is Mark's chart public? I asked, trying to make my voice steady. The nurse on the phone was kind. She told me she could not give medical records over the phone. She said I could set an appointment. I said I would. I hung up and felt like I had spoken through cotton. I had thought the truth would come out like a light. It did not. It came out like a slow burn that changed everything a little at a time. The next night was different. I had set the hidden camera again. I had put a second one in the living room where the hall light could catch faces. I had placed soft rugs down the hall to try and muffle footsteps. I wanted proof that I could not deny in the light of day. I wanted to know the names of the people who came. I wanted the world to see what I had seen. At 1:55 a.m., I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. The coffee was cold beside me. I felt like I had exhausted every possible way of being brave and still had to find more. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed again. This night, the door opened and the light came on. Mark moved with the same slow grace. He had a man with him this time, a man I recognized only by the shape of his walk. He was broad, with shoulders that filled the doorway. He was not one of the quiet young women. He had a voice like gravel when he spoke. He came in and looked around, then he came close to Mark and spoke softly. I watched the feed until my eyes hurt. The two of them talked in low voices. They stood close and smiled. It looked like business. It looked like a plan. They held each other's hands for a moment. Then they reached under the bed. The camera flicked for a second and the frame blurred. When the picture came back, a small envelope had slid out from under the bed and lay on the floor. The man picked it up, opened it, and his face changed. He looked shocked. He looked angry. He looked at Mark like someone who sees a traitor in front of him. Mark tried to explain. He flinched as if hit. A noise came from the hallway. Someone banged on the front door hard enough to rattle the frames on the wall. A voice shouted, "Open up. Police. We have a warrant." The laptop screen froze on the image of the man standing in the room with Mark's face white as milk. The sound of the knock echoed in my chest. My heart felt like it left my body and went to hide under the bed. The camera kept rolling. The man I had seen working the courier job turned toward the door and moved to answer. I did not know who had called the police. I had not called them. No one I knew would have. The city could not guess what had happened in our house. My phone buzzed again with an unknown number. A message popped up on the screen. "We are on our way." Then a second message. "Don't move." I did not move. I could not. The knock on the door came again, harder this time. The sound of metal on wood made my bones clench. The camera under the bed, that black dot, kept flaring red as it recorded. Everything in me wanted to run to the bedroom and tear the sheets off and wake Mark and throw questions at him until he answered. But I did not. I sat at the table with the laptop open, the light from the screen making my face look like a ghost. The house seemed to hold its breath. Outside, tire sounds grew louder. The red and blue of a police car flashed across the curtains. Someone shouted something I could not make out. I pressed my hand to my mouth to stop a scream. The pump in the corner of Mark's room hummed and blinked like a small heart. I remembered when we had first bought it, how scared we had been. I remembered how he had let me be his keeper. I remembered how warm his hand had felt the first time he took mine. Now officers stood on our porch. The laptop screen went black for a second, like it could not hold the image any longer. When the picture returned, the man in the room had gone to the door. The officer shouted one more time. The door opened. I could not breathe. I could not think. I watched the footage as strangers with badges stepped into our living room and looked around like they were stepping into a story that should not be real. One officer's face turned toward the camera. He stared straight at it, and then toward the bedroom. Mark turned toward the sound and his face was a mask of something I had not seen before. Fear, maybe, or a kind of guilty surprise. Then the feed cut. The screen went black and a small white message appeared. Recording ended. My hands shook so badly I could not make them still. I closed the laptop and put it in my lap. The sound of the police on the porch banged in my ears like a drum. I stood up so fast I almost toppled over. My legs were weak. I moved to the bedroom door and tried to open it, but it was locked from the inside. The lock made a small, cruel sound. I pressed my ear to the wood and heard voices. Low and quick. They sounded like they were speaking to each other. One voice said, "We did not have any idea." Another said, "It was under his mattress." A third voice, an officer, said, "We have to secure the scene." My throat closed. I backed away from the door and leaned against the wall. My breath came in short, hot bursts. The house had become a place of hidden things. The people who had once helped us with small gifts now seemed like characters in a play whose ending I had not written. I sat on the couch and waited. I felt small and cold and very tired. The red and blue light from the police cruiser made stripes on the ceiling. Dogs somewhere began to bark. The officers moved like they had been waiting for this exact moment. I did not know if this was the end or only the beginning. Then the front door opened from inside and the officer stepped out. He looked at me as if I were something he half recognized. He asked my name. Before I could answer, the officer held up a small plastic bag with a white label. Inside, I could see a small packet of something. My knees nearly buckled. I knew that packet. I had found one under the bed once. The officer said something about evidence and warrants and fraud. The world tilted under my feet. The officer looked at me with a face that was kind and terrible at the same time. He said, "We need to ask you some questions, ma'am." I swallowed. My voice shook when I spoke. "Do you know what this is about?" I asked. He looked at me like he did not know how to say what he was about to say. He put the evidence bag into a box. The bag had our house number on it. The officer's mouth moved slowly. He said, "There are allegations of fraud. We have reason to believe Mr. Collins may be involved in a scheme." We were tipped off. A bolt of warm, dry light went through my chest. My hands trembled. I felt like I had been pulled by a rope under the water. I wanted to tell them everything. I wanted to give them the videos. I wanted to smash the lies into pieces and walk over them. But my mouth would not shape into words. The officer asked again if I had seen anything unusual at night. I thought of the rappers. I thought of the Polaroid. I thought of the smiles in the dark. I thought of the way Mark had let me hold him while he faked being weak. Outside, 2 more police cars came. The street filled with the low hum of people whispering. My phone buzzed with messages I could not bear. The officer told me gently that they would need to take Mark in for questioning. He said he could not say more. For a moment, the house was quiet in a way that felt like a last breath. Then the officer asked if I wanted to go with them to the station. I did not know what to do. I wanted to stay with the man I loved and also wanted to leave him forever. I wanted to look at him and snatch his face and ask why. But I also wanted to see the evidence they had found. I wanted to know who had called the police. I wanted to know if this was the beginning of a truth that could fix a large thing or the end of everything we had. I stood in the doorway, the police lights painting me red and blue, and felt the house around me like a shell that had held a living thing and now was cracked open. The officers were gentle in a way that hurt. They asked me to pack a bag if I wanted to come. I grabbed a small purse and a toothbrush. My hands moved without feeling. I left Milo a note and called my mother with shaking fingers. I told her only that the police were here and that I might be at the station. She said she was on her way. When I stepped outside, the chill night air hit my face. The police spoke softly. One officer took my hand and guided me to the cruiser. I almost forgot how to breathe. The house behind me had its lights on, and through the thin curtains I could see shadows moving. Mark's silhouette stood at the bedroom window like something carved in half. As the car door closed, I looked back. The camera had recorded it all. I had watched the man I loved walk and talk and hide his truth. I had watched people come and take evidence. I had watched the world split into before and after. The cruiser moved and the house shrank in the rear window. I gripped the edge of my seat like it was a lifeline. Behind me, the house stood with its secrets still in it. The officer put a hand on my knee and said, "We will get to the bottom of this." I wanted to believe him. I wanted any part of this to be fixed by a voice I could trust. But as the city lights rolled by, all I could think about was the small Polaroid in the drawer and the handful of wrappers in a paper bag. My life had changed in a single night. And I had no idea how deep the lies went. At the end of Chapter 2, the police car drives away with Sarah, officers still holding evidence, and the house stands silent, except for the faint click of a small recorder left running on the kitchen table. The file on its tiny screen shows a new name that makes Sarah's blood run cold. The camera had captured one extra frame before it died, a close-up of Mark's wrist where a small, thin bracelet sat, an engraved name she had never seen. The bracelet read, MR for always. The recording cuts. The police cruiser smelled like old leather and cold air. I sat in the back with my hands pushed between my knees, trying to hold myself together. The night outside slid past the window in long streaks of gray and orange. Houses blurred into lines. Streetlights bent into thin halos. My whole world felt like it was melting and reshaping into something I didn't recognize. My phone buzzed again. Caller ID, unknown. We need to talk about what he's hiding. I stared at the screen until it dimmed. The officer driving glanced at me through the rearview mirror. Everything all right back there? No, I whispered, because lying felt heavier than the truth. He didn't push. He just nodded like he had seen too many people break in the same soft way and knew pressing harder might make them shatter completely. We reached the police station in 10 minutes, but it felt like a long road stretched across my whole life. When they opened the door for me, the cold air hit my face like a slap. I stepped out slowly, clutching my small purse like it was the only solid thing left in my hands. Inside, the station buzzed with quiet conversations and the hum of computers. Officers typed and walked and nodded to each other. At a desk near the front, a tall officer with kind eyes looked up. He reminded me of someone's favorite uncle, steady, warm, calm. He said, Sarah Collins? I nodded because speaking felt too heavy. Come with me, he said gently. He led me to a small interview room. The walls were pale and the light hummed above us. He placed a bottle of water on the table in front of me. You're not under investigation, he said first, like he needed to make sure the ground under my feet didn't collapse any further. But we need your statement. My throat tightened. About what? The officer folded his hands. We received an anonymous tip about your husband. A tip suggesting fraudulent activity connected to disability aid and charity funding. He watched my face carefully. The tip also said there might be additional concerns. I felt my heartbeat in my ears. Additional concerns? Someone claimed there's evidence of him coordinating with people to move items at night. We don't know what the items are yet, but it's enough to investigate. My mind flashed to the gym bag, to the warehouse, to the courier, to the nights Mark slipped out like a shadow. My hand shook. I have videos. The hidden camera. It shows him walking. And meeting people. And I don't even know what else. The officer didn't look surprised. Yes, we saw a clip. My heart stopped. How? I didn't give it. We didn't get it from you, he said quietly. The room felt smaller. Tighter. Like the air had thickened. Someone else had access to my footage. Someone who knew the camera was there. Someone who sent me that message. We need to talk about what he's hiding. My fingers curled around the edge of the table. Did you see the whole recording? Not all of it. The clip we received was short. But it was clear enough. He leaned back. Sarah, your husband has been pretending to live with a severe disability. You may already know that. I nodded, tears burning behind my eyes. I know. What we don't know, he continued softly, is why. I squeezed the bottle of water until it crackled. He told the world he couldn't walk. He raised money. People helped us. They believed him. I believed him. The officer's voice dropped lower. He was deceiving you too. That's important for us to confirm. You aren't in trouble for anything he did. But we need everything you can tell us. I told him everything I could remember. Not in clean lines, but in broken pieces. The rappers. The women. The Polaroid. The gym bag. The messages. The late-night drives. The warehouse. The courier. The bracelet engraved MR for always. When I finished, my voice felt scraped raw. The officer sat still for a moment, letting the silence stretch. Then he asked something that hit me like a cold wave. Sarah, did you know your husband changed his life insurance policy last month? I blinked. No. Did he tell you he named a new beneficiary? My mouth went dry. No, he didn't. He nodded slowly, as if that confirmed something he had expected. Who? I whispered. We don't know yet. The system redacted the name on our search, meaning it isn't you. And whoever it is, It's someone he updated without your knowledge. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. Mark had lied about his health, lied about his body, lied about money, lied about charity, lied about everything. And now he lied about life insurance. The officer stood and opened the door. We'll check on your husband now. He's in holding for questioning. You don't have to see him if you don't want to. But I stood too. Something in me needed answers, even if they hurt. I'll see him. He led me down the hall. Officers passed by with quiet steps. My breath came in small, uneven gasps. My heart pounded so hard it made my vision blur. We stopped at a small room with a glass window. Inside, Mark sat at a table with his head down. His hands were cuffed loosely in front of him. He looked tired. Tired and guilty. Not weak. Not sick. Not broken. Just caught. He looked up and saw me through the glass. His eyes widened. For the first time in months, maybe years, I saw the real Mark. Not the sick man. Not the gentle victim. Not the fragile husband I had taken care of. I saw the man who had lied to me with ease. He mouthed something. I leaned closer. He whispered, "Sarah, don't trust them." My hands trembled. "Mark, why? Why did you do all of this?" He closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were full of something dark and scared. "I did it for us." My stomach twisted. "Us? You don't understand." His voice cracked. "They made me. They needed me. I didn't have a choice." "Sarah, they're watching everything. Please." The officer stepped in and tapped the window. "Time." Mark's eyes went wide again. "Sarah, please. Whatever you found, whatever you saw, don't go home. Don't." The officer closed the door. Silence swallowed me whole. The ground under my feet pitched like a boat in a storm. I gripped the railing to stay upright. The officer placed a hand on my shoulder. "We're going to need your house keys. We're executing a full search warrant on your residence." I nodded slowly. Then something strange happened. A female officer jogged down the hall holding a stack of folders. "Sir," she said breathlessly to the lead officer, "we found something." He took the folder, flipped it open, and his face changed. His eyes flicked to me. "Mrs. Collins, you're going to want to sit down." My knees buckled. I sat on the nearest bench because I had no choice. He held up a small printed document. "This is the beneficiary name from your husband's life insurance, before it was redacted." I braced myself for another woman's name. Maybe Emily. Maybe someone else from the videos. But when he flipped the page around, my breath left my body. Because the name wasn't a woman. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't anyone I expected. It was a single name written in neat, clear letters. Michael Collins. My blood ran cold. Michael Collins was not a lover. Not a secret girlfriend. Not a mistress. Michael Collins was Mark's older brother. A brother who died 8 years ago. A brother whose grave I had visited. A brother who should not exist on any legal document. Unless someone had been using his identity for something. The officers exchanged looks, serious, sharp, worried. "Mrs. Collins," the lead officer said quietly. "There's something very wrong here." I couldn't breathe. My heart hammered against my ribs. And then, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "Sarah, you're not safe. Michael isn't dead." The world tilted. My vision blurred. My fingers went numb. The chapter ends with Sarah staring at the message, the officers startled, the room spinning, and a single chilling question echoing in her mind. If Michael isn't dead, then who have I really been living with all these years? The words on my phone screen didn't look real. "Sarah, you're not safe. Michael isn't dead." For a second, everything around me went silent, the buzzing lights, the officers' voices, even my own breath. It felt like the whole world slid sideways. The officer beside me leaned in. "Ma'am, what does it say?" I couldn't speak. I just held up the phone with a shaking hand. He read the message, and his expression froze, like someone had thrown a bucket of ice water into his thoughts. Another officer stepped closer. "Who is Michael?" My husband's older brother," I whispered. He died 8 years ago. A car accident. We buried him. My voice cracked. Memories flickered like broken film. The funeral. The closed casket. Mark sobbing into my shoulder. A framed picture of Michael on the table with a candle beside it. Mark saying, "I miss him every day." "Mrs. Collins," an officer said slowly, "is there any chance at all, that the man you buried wasn't your husband's brother?" A cold, electric pain shot through my chest. No, that's impossible. I saw the photos. I saw the obituary. But then my words died. Because now that I thought about it, no one had opened the casket. No one had asked to. Mark insisted it stay closed because of the injuries. And everyone respected the grief. No one questioned the details. The officer's voice dropped low. This could be identity fraud on a much bigger scale than we thought. I pressed both hands to my face. I don't understand any of this. Before anyone could respond, the station's main door swung open. A young man rushed in, out of breath, carrying a tablet. His badge hung loosely around his neck. "Sir," he called out to the lead officer. "You need to see this. Now." They took the tablet, tapped the screen, and stared. I rose slowly, my legs trembling. What is it?" The lead officer didn't answer at first. His jaw tightened. His brows lowered. His eyes darkened. Finally, he turned the tablet around. A security camera feed was playing footage from outside my house. Multiple officers stood on my porch, preparing to execute the search warrant. The timestamp read 15 minutes ago. In the footage, one of the officers knocked on my door. Then the door opened. From the inside. And the man stepping out wasn't Mark. He wasn't handcuffed. He wasn't in custody. He wasn't weak or scared or pretending. He looked straight into the outdoor camera. Straight into it, like he knew exactly where it was. My heart slammed against my ribs. Because the man in the video, he looked exactly like Mark. Same face. Same voice when he spoke to the officers. Same build. Same everything. But he moved differently. Confident. Controlled. Strong. And then my blood turned to ice. The man smiled at the officers and said, "Hi. You must be here about my brother." The officers in the hallway around me froze. "Your brother?" one of them in the footage asked. The man nodded calmly. "Yes. Mark Collins. He's inside. I'll let you in." I grabbed the table to keep myself standing. Because the man in the footage, the one who looked exactly like my husband, was telling the police he was Michael. And he was acting like the real Mark wasn't him. The officers in the room erupted into motion, calling out orders, grabbing radios, shouting instructions. But I couldn't hear anything clearly. Everything was muffled, like my head was underwater. The lead officer tried to steady me. "Ma'am, we need you to listen carefully. Someone is at your house claiming to be Michael Collins. We don't know what's happening yet." I shook my head. That's not possible. Mark is here. In this building. You arrested him. You put him in. A loud alarm went off down the hall. Officers' eyes widened. Someone shouted, "Holding cell breach." My heart dropped so hard I nearly fainted. "Cell breach," I whispered. "What does that mean?" The lead officer ran down the hall with two others, and I followed, stumbling behind them. When we reached the holding cell area, the door to the room where Mark had been sitting was wide open. The inside was empty. His cuffs were on the floor, snapped clean through, like someone had cut them with a tool. A piece of paper lay on the table. A single Polaroid picture. The officer closest to it picked it up. His face went pale. He handed it to me slowly. My hands trembled as I lifted it. It was a picture of my bedroom, taken from the hidden camera's perspective. The bed. The pump. The corner of the frame. And sitting on the bed, smiling a quiet, cold smile, was the same man from the video at my house. He had written something on the bottom of the Polaroid. A message. 4 words. "You buried the wrong one." My knees gave out. I dropped the picture. My vision blurred. I clutched the doorway to keep myself from collapsing entirely. The lead officer grabbed his radio. "Lock this building down now. If he's still inside." Another officer rushed over. "Sir, we traced the anonymous tip phone number." "Good," the lead officer snapped. "Where did the call come from?" The young officer swallowed. "It came from inside your house, sir." The room went dead quiet. In the upstairs hallway. From a burner phone in the attic. My lungs squeezed tight. My house. The attic. A phone calling the police. A message sent to me. Someone had been in my house all along. Watching me. Watching us. Watching everything. Mrs. Collins, the lead officer said urgently, "We need to get you somewhere safe right now. Whoever this man is, he's targeting you." My phone buzzed again. A new message. Chapter 4 ends here. You shouldn't have looked under the bed, Sarah. The phone slipped from my hand. It hit the floor. The message glowed up at all of us like a warning flare. I covered my mouth to keep the scream from coming out. Because in that moment, one chilling truth settled deep into my bones. The man in my house wasn't just lying about who he was. He wasn't just hiding something. He wasn't just pretending to be sick. He was someone I didn't know at all. Someone who could move between identities like changing clothes. Someone dangerous. Someone who wasn't afraid of the police. Or me. Or anything. And he was coming back for something. Or someone. Me. The chapter ends with officers grabbing their weapons, alarms blaring, and Sarah being rushed toward a secure room, while in the corner of the hallway, unnoticed, a small attic access panel hangs open, just a little, as if someone climbed down moments ago. And the last shot is of that Polaroid on the floor, slowly sliding under the vent, as if someone unseen is pulling it inward. The alarms kept screaming through the police station. Red lights flashed across the hallways, painting everything in sharp, shaking color. Officers rushed past me with their radios pressed to their mouths. Boots pounded on the tile floor. The air felt heavy, like something terrible was about to break open. 2 officers grabbed my arms, not rough, but fast, urgent. "Ma'am, we need to move. Now." I nodded, even though my legs barely worked. My mind was stuck on the Polaroid. "You buried the wrong one." Every word felt like a nail in my chest. They rushed me down a hallway toward a secure room. I kept looking back over my shoulder, expecting someone, him, to appear in the doorway, smiling that calm, wrong smile. But the hallway stayed empty. We reached a metal door. One officer typed in a code. The lock clicked loudly. They pushed me inside. The room was plain. 1 table. 4 chairs. A tiny window too small for any grown person to climb through. But I still backed into a corner, hugging my arms around myself like a child hiding from a nightmare. The officer with kind eyes, the one who spoke to me earlier, stepped inside and closed the door. "Sarah, listen closely," he said softly, kneeling a little to meet my eye level. "We believe the man you know as Mark and the man you buried as Michael may have switched identities years ago." My voice came out weak. So the man I married might not be Mark?" "We're working to confirm that," he said carefully. "But the evidence right now, it looks like the real Mark Collins may have died. And whoever took his identity is the man who lived with you." My throat closed. My breath skipped. The memories hit me like hard rain. His fake tremors. His long nights away. His excuses. His laugh when he read secret messages. The gym bags. The rappers. The endless lies. "Why?" I whispered through shaking lips. "Why pretend to be disabled? Why pretend to be my husband? Why pretend to be anyone?" The officer's voice softened. "We think it was for money at first. Charity money. Sympathy. Donations." His jaw tightened. "But the warehouse, the secret meetings, the courier, that suggests something else." "Something criminal?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "Possibly. But without catching him, we can't confirm." A cold thought slid through me like a blade. If that man is Michael, then where is the real Mark? My voice cracked. What did he do to him? The officer didn't answer. He didn't have to. His silence said everything. I covered my mouth with both hands and shook as silent tears slid down my face. He let me cry for a few minutes. He didn't touch me or rush me. He waited. Finally he said, "We'll get you somewhere safe tonight. A hotel with police posted outside. After that, we'll put you in temporary protection until he's found." I nodded slowly. I didn't feel safe, even here. Then a knock at the door. The officer stood instantly, hand on his holster. "Who is it?" A voice answered, "It's Johnson. We found something." The officer cracked the door open. Come in. Another officer, younger, nervous, came in holding a tablet and a clipboard. We finished searching her house, he said, handing over the clipboard. The attic was the worst part. My heart stopped. What was in the attic? He swallowed. A mattress. Food wrappers. Water bottles. A small light. Someone had been living up there for a while. I felt sick. The attic door was above the hallway. I hardly ever looked at it. I assumed it was just old Christmas decorations and dust. But someone had been sitting above my head while I slept. Listening to me cry. Listening to me talk to my mother. Listening to me feed the man I thought was my husband. The officer continued, we also found a stack of Polaroids. He paused as if choosing how much to say. Most are pictures of you, Mrs. Collins. Taken inside the house. Taken, without your knowledge. My knees almost gave out. Pictures of me sleeping, cooking, crying, sitting alone with my head in my hands. My skin crawled. The young officer added, and one more thing, we found a burner phone. It has outgoing calls to the station, including the anonymous tip. The room fell silent. So, I whispered, whoever called the police, was the same person watching me? The officer nodded. Yes. That doesn't make any sense, I said. Why help us? Why warn me? The lead officer spoke quietly. Because sometimes criminals fight each other. Sometimes secrets eat the people who keep them. Sometimes the person watching isn't trying to save you or hurt you. They're trying to protect their own place in the mess. A chill ran down my back. Before I could reply, the tablet in the young officer's hand buzzed. A new alert. He tapped it. His face drained of color. What is it? The lead officer asked. He turned the screen to us. It was security camera footage again. From outside the police station. The timestamp was 1 minute ago. A dark figure stood at the edge of the parking lot. Still. Watching the building. Hands in his pockets. Head tilted slightly upward, toward the camera. The same face I had slept beside for 10 years. The man on the screen smiled. Then lifted a phone to his ear. My phone, still in my pocket, buzzed. Every officer in the room went cold and silent at the same time. The lead officer said, don't answer it. But my hand had already moved. My thumb trembled over the screen. I put the phone slowly to my ear. I didn't say a word. A soft, steady voice spoke through the speaker. Calm. Warm. Familiar. Wrong. Sarah, he said. I told you not to go home. My heart slammed against my ribs. I stared at the tablet screen showing him outside, staring up at us. Why are you doing this? I whispered. He laughed quietly. Sweetheart, if you knew the truth, you wouldn't be asking that. Tears slid down my face. Who are you? The smile faded in his voice. Not Mark, he said simply. Officers leaned in, listening. Then, who? I whispered. A long pause stretched through the phone. Then he said something that made the inside of my body turn cold. I'm the one you weren't supposed to save. Before I could respond, officers rushed out of the room, shouting commands. The call cut off. The tablet screen flickered. The man turned away from the parking lot camera and stepped out of view. The lead officer locked the door behind him. Stay here. Do not move. I sat down. My whole body was shaking. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. The alarm stopped. The radios crackled. Voices called to each other in the hall. Finally, the lead officer returned. His face was tight, but calm. He's gone, he said. We searched the area. We'll keep looking. But for now, you're safe. I nodded, even though I didn't feel safe at all. Then he added, we found something near the edge of the lot. A bag. He handed it to me gently. It was the gym bag. The same one from the videos. My fingers trembled as I unzipped it. Inside were a stack of fake IDs, thousands of dollars in cash, a burner phone, a Polaroid camera, and a folded piece of paper. I unfolded it slowly. It was a letter, written in familiar handwriting. Sarah, I never meant to hurt you. You were the only good thing in my life, the only soft place. But I knew it couldn't last. Not when you started looking. Not when you put the camera under the bed. I had to go. But don't worry. You'll be okay now. You always were stronger than me. And I'm sorry about the real Mark. He deserved better. You deserved better. Take care of yourself. M. My breath caught. The officer asked gently, "Do you know what this means?" I nodded slowly. My heart broke a little as the truth settled in. "Yes," I whispered. "He's running. And he won't stop," the officer added. I folded the letter and closed the bag. "No," I said quietly. "He won't." But neither would I. Because now I knew the whole truth. I had married a stranger. I had loved a lie. I had cared for a man who wasn't sick, but was hiding from something darker. He had used my home as his mask. He had used my kindness as his shield. He had used my love as his escape. And now I knew what he meant in the letter. "I'm the one you weren't supposed to save." He wasn't talking about pity, or charity, or his faked illness. He meant the accident 8 years ago. The car crash that killed Michael. The one Mark survived. Only, it wasn't Mark who survived. It was Michael. A brother who took his own brother's life. A brother who stepped into his identity. A brother who stepped into my life. And the man I was supposed to save, the man everyone thought was disabled, had been missing for 8 years. The real Mark Collins. Gone. I wiped my face and stood up. The officers walked me out of the station, staying close on each side. When I stepped outside, the cold night air hit me hard. I looked out across the empty parking lot, searching the shadows. I didn't see him, but I felt him. Somewhere out there. Watching. Running. Changing names. Changing faces. Changing everything. But this time, not from me. I took a deep breath. Tomorrow, I would file for divorce from a man who didn't even exist on paper anymore. In the morning, I would move out of that house. Throw away the mattress. Burn the Polaroids. Delete the footage. Start my life again with a heart that had been broken and rebuilt. And if the police ever caught him, if justice ever came, I would be there in court. And I would not look away. I walked toward the police car waiting to take me to a safe hotel. As I opened the door, my phone buzzed one last time. A final message. No name. No number. Just words. "Goodbye, Sarah. Thank you for loving me." I didn't cry. I simply blocked the number, turned off the phone, and stepped into the car. The door shut behind me. The engine started. The night opened in front of me like a long, dark road. And for the first time in a long time, I was finally driving toward a life that belonged to me.